Welcome to The Simple Sophisticate, where in 2014, this podcast premiered. And now in its 11th season, the show continues to focus on the same principles it was founded upon, the art of living a life of quality over quantity. Topics range from creating an everyday life you love living, strengthening mindfulness practices, building a capsule wardrobe, preparing seasonally delicious meals, traveling and exploring France and Britain, and living life to the fullest without breaking the bank, because living well really is quite simple. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, en route, or returning from that dream destination, or sitting down with a hot cuppa or a cafe au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 389th episode of The Simple Sophisticate. And today we're going to be talking about two vitally important skills and daily practices that can lift our everydays and also improve the quality of our journey. And basically, as close as you can come to a guarantee of reaching those goals, those objectives that you want to reach or to welcome into your life. What am I talking about? I'm talking about gratitude and celebration. They really go hand in hand. One is really an example of the other. And I'll walk you through how they actually benefit our lives and what they might look like in your life beyond the more commonly talked about examples that we may hear about. All right. But before I get to that topic today, this week's Petite Plaisir is a French find, and it's one from a brand I have been enjoying for many, many years, but it's a particular item from this brand that now that I know more, I savor and appreciate it so much in my everydays, and I look forward to sharing it with you. All right. So let's get to talking about this topic for today's episode, the importance of gratitude and celebration throughout our everydays and along our life journey. So, a quick question to start us off. How do you feel when you hear someone thank you for a small gesture that you may do all the time without thinking about it? It seems minuscule, it's habitual, you don't even maybe realize you do it anymore. But it's something that when you think about it, it is actually something that makes where you live or where you work or where you call home a little bit nicer and a little bit more enjoyable, not only for you, but for anyone who is enjoying or is part of that space. So maybe it's putting away your dishes in the dishwasher instead of the sink so your partner doesn't have to do that later in the day. Or maybe it's knocking before you enter your colleague's office or workspace, or texting to see if someone is available to talk before you ring their phone for a chat. So really, it can be anything that shows consideration for others. And when someone sees that, acknowledges that, and simply says thank you, how do you feel when that happens? Just hold that thought for a moment as we talk about today's focus. So here's an example from my own life. I'm going to flip this in the reverse, and it's an example of saying thank you and taking notice of an action that someone may be doing that it's just what they do, and it's simple and it's habitual, and they don't even think about it. But I so appreciate it when this happens. So as a dog owner here in Bend, there are many parents when they're with their children or their child, and their child shows interest and wants to pet Norman and Nell, they will prompt their child to ask to pet Norman and Nell. And before they reach out to the pups. Now, this is not only, a very thoughtful and kind thing to do, but it's a safety thing too, understandably. So to make sure that the dog is a dog they want their kid to pet, which is such a good idea. But this happens a lot in Bend. And I try to always remember to say thank you to the parent and then also to the child for their kindness and their consideration of what is, my dog. It's not my child, but it's my dog. And the fact that they're thinking about someone else, as well as thinking about the situation as a whole, means so much. And I want to make sure that they know how much it's appreciated, as well as assuming that not all dogs want to be petted. So, therefore, making sure that everyone remains safe. So, immediately in that moment, a kindness, a genuine exchange has occurred. And whether we ever see each other again or not, we did see each other in that moment. They saw my dogs. I saw their actions and their words and their child and them. And in that moment, we've acknowledged what meant a lot, both through saying thank you, but also by asking to pet the pups. And every time I'm smiling, I'm walking away with a little bit of a boost of more of energy. And I hope that I've shared positive energy with them as well by taking the time to say thank you. Very, very small incident, very, very much an ordinary moment in my day. And I share this ordinary moment with you because it is a regular occurrence for me. And I no longer take it for granted that such an interaction will happen. But you know what? More often than not, this type of interaction happens multiple times throughout my week. And the joy that it brings to my day to see children and adults enjoy the pups is a delightful boost of energy. And so when we see and acknowledge what is going well, we begin to permanently change what our mind not only looks for, but believes is possible because we have experienced that good moment. And so when we change our mindset, we change the potential of possibilities that will cross our path because we're looking for them. And we're also putting that energy out into the world by saying thank you. Now, this leads me to celebration. So that's the first part of our conversation today. We'll talk about gratitude, but it immediately dovetails beautifully into celebrating. So perhaps hearing that celebrating is a necessary part of the journey of success may come across to you as frivolous or unnecessary. Or maybe it's discretionary. If I have time, I'll celebrate. Or perhaps when you envision celebrating, the thought of a large party of people and dancing and drinking just does not appeal to you. So you aren't someone who thinks celebrating is necessary. And I will say right here and now that I am with you on that one, that last one. I don't need a big shindig either to celebrate. I mean, I can absolutely celebrate comfortably and happily, more happily than not, in my own company or with a very small group of people. But celebrating, and this is important, I want to really make sure we're clear on this, celebrating can appear in many different forms. So long as it is a form that allows you to decompress, to rest, and rejuvenate, as well as extend gratitude, if necessary, with regards to depending on what it is you were working on or the project you completed. If you were working with others along the way or others worked with you along the way to make it possible, then include gratitude as part of the celebration as well. And all of those things together, rest, rejuvenation, and extending gratitude to others who helped you along the way, that is celebrating. However it looks, however you design it so that you feel all those things. And today, I would like to share with you how celebrating after each victory, no matter how small or big, is vital. It is a necessary component to future successes. This is not an option. It is not discretionary. It is necessary. So let's take a look at the importance of gratitude and celebration in our everyday lives. So let's start with gratitude. I want to begin with a quote. And this episode is largely inspired by a book that just came out by licensed clinical psychologist Mary E. Anderson. And her book is titled The Happy High Achiever, 8 Essentials to Overcome Anxiety, Manage Stress, and Energize Yourself for Success Without Losing Your Edge. So we're going to begin with a quote from the book. And every quote that I share, unless I attribute it to someone else, is from The Happy High Achiever, Dr. Mary E. Anderson. So here we go. Quote, "Gratitude is not what you have. It's about valuing what you have." End quote. Without an awareness of all that is going well, what the depth of the world around you is providing for your life, then we still technically are either living ignorantly or taking the life, no matter how much we love where we are currently or not, we are taking that life for granted. We fall into this bad habit of assuming that all that is occurring at this moment is what it is, and we don't appreciate the value of how it came to be and what it takes to maintain it. However, when we consciously begin to pay attention and become aware of the clean air we are breathing, the calm and quiet at night so that we are able to fall asleep with ease, clean and running water to take our shower in the morning, we stop taking for granted these fundamentals. And even when all is not as we might hope, we don't get tangled up in asking for more, but instead appreciate what is and stay on the path we have set our intention. So let's talk about what gratitude looks like in our daily life when we start doing it intentionally, when we start doing it consciously, regularly, every single day. So, number one, there is a shift in our gaze as we look at our day. So, what I mean by that is when we begin to live our days, really holding ourselves in the present moment instead of wanting what isn't part of our day, whatever that might be, a green light, more money in the retirement fund, better weather, nicer clothes, et cetera, we shift what we see. And when we shift what we see, we begin to realize how much is going quite well. So that's number one. It's a shifting of our gaze to looking at our day right now. What is going on? Two, we start to see opportunity and assistance toward the life we dream about or maintain the life we love. So, another quote here to begin us off on this point, finding the possibility within the challenge. So, not only are we shifting our gaze, but when things don't go as we want, we realize, yeah, it may not be what I want. I'm not going to be happy about this moment. It's not going to be super fun. I know there's something here that's going to help me. There's an opportunity here if I choose to find it. There is assistance here if I choose to accept it. This is a life truth that we talk about often here on the podcast and on the blog. And I've linked to a lot of different posts so you can explore this further. It's that every unwanted moment is helping us, should we choose to accept it, to get where we want to go. Our job is to trust that this is true and look for the hidden gem in the headache. Or, as Albert Einstein put it, quote, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity, end quote. So that's number two. It's a shifting, as we said, of our gaze, but with regards to unwanted moments, it's a searching for the gem, searching for the assistance, for the opportunity. Number three, it's an elevation of self-talk. We're going to change how we talk to ourselves. When we live with gratitude regularly in our lives, we're going to shift how we talk to ourselves. We're going to let go of the shoulds. We're going to let go of imagining worst case scenarios. We're going to let go of anything unconstructive in our mental talk to ourselves. You know what those things are. We habitually do them for whatever reason, but likely it's because there is a lack of confidence that good things can happen, good outcomes can occur. We can change and do something we've never done before. The unknown is a possibility, not something to be worried about. Now, I'm not saying that we have to ignore the pain or dismiss undesirable feelings, but instead, embrace saying to yourself, don't hold back when things go well. So you're not in the company of anyone else, but don't pass these moments by. If when something goes well, no matter how small or big, say, yep, I did that. Say it out loud. Let yourself hear yourself say that. Or whoop, whoop, happy dance time. I got a raise. Let yourself say these things out loud. It starts to become more comfortable the more you say these things. And you're not saying these in front of someone else. This is to you. Let yourself talk to yourself like you would a beloved friend who has just received good news. Often people don't say such positive things out loud because there is a vulnerability in being happy about our successes. We don't want to seem arrogant or to appear to be bragging. And of course, we can also have this positive self-talk when we're around other people, but we just need to be aware of who the people are that we're around, who our audience is. And if they or anyone in that room is part of our reason for celebrating, we need to make sure we are inclusive of that celebration. So gratitude is exchanged to those who are part of the success. If we don't elevate our self-talk, even our individual self won't believe it when good things happen, but rather continue to look to self-protect, which has a shrinking effect on our life. We're going to talk a little bit more about how this self-talk can appear and also the benefits of doing so later in our conversation. But just know that is one way that gratitude shows up in your day. Not only are we extending gratitude to people, we're also letting ourselves celebrate when we do well. Say, good job, woohoo! And that's it's self-talk that is fueling, is energizing. And it's going to, as we'll talk about in a moment, change how our brain understands how life can be. All right, speaking of life, number 4, there is an awareness when we have gratitude regularly in our days that life is not black and white, but rather all sorts of shades of gray. And what I mean by this is that when unwanted moments occur in our day, or we are forced to confront an unwanted situation that will take time, energy, and resources to address and overcome, we may feel, this is the old us, okay, the old us that didn't embrace gratitude, we may feel as if there is nothing to be grateful for. However, with awareness as part of our toolkit, we no longer let ourselves jump to absolute trains of thought. No longer are we going to say things like, this is the worst thing that could happen to me, or I always stumble when I take a chance, or nothing is ever easy for me. Notice those words, nothing, always, worst. Those are what we call absolute verbiage. So we're going to let go of the absolute language or superlatives. With regards to it's the worst, it's the best. If it ends in EST, it's a superlative with regards to ranking. But nothing, always, never. That's absolute. You're leaving no room for any other possibility. Instead, when we practice gratitude, not only are we able to look for the opportunity in the turmoil, as we talked about earlier, but we also know such statements are flatly incorrect. And to make them, those negative statements, those absolute statements, only hinders our progress forward through the unwanted moment. This is where the grays come into play. So gratitude gives us perspective, as Dr. Anderson reminds. How or why? Because we know there are actually things going well around us, and we know things have worked out in small or large ways, even if we took them for granted at the time in the past. So things haven't always gone wrong. Things are, you can poke holes in this unhelpful talk that will not benefit you in any way. And she talks about this often in the book, poke holes. Basically, bring your critical thinking mind, something I teach in the Contentment Masterclass, how to be a critical thinker. Bring your critical thinking mind to these unhelpful negative scripts and start poking holes in them. And this is something I talked about in my 3rd book as well. Katie Byron teaches the 4-question approach to an unwanted feeling or thought. Do you know this is true? If you know it is true, how do you know it's true? And if it is true, how does it make you feel that it is when you know it's true? In other words, usually right off the bat, you can say, okay, I don't know it's true. So you just stop yourself in your tracks. You can't prove it's true. You know it's not true that every single time you try something new, it doesn't work out. So it really is about poking holes in the self-talk that's unhelpful talk, okay? When we put our critical thinking cap on, we know that this absolute talk, this all or nothing thinking is faulty at its foundation. So we no longer go there. And instead, with our open mind and dealing with what is rather than making it larger and more seemingly impossible, which helps us not at all, we start to realize that life is full of gray areas. The 5th way that this shows up in our life is probably the most common. It is simply noting moments or reasons or events or actions to be grateful for. And as I said earlier, this could be an exchange, verbally with someone, an action has happened that was helpful, that you appreciated, that, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone did that, or that was so helpful. And you verbally say thank you. Or, maybe you are in your own company and you see this beautiful sunrise or sunset, or maybe you're out walking and you hear the birds singing and you just, you're just there. You hold yourself there and you take in that moment. You don't blithely put your iPod or your AirPods in and turn the music up. Whoa, you hold yourself in the present moment and you listen. Um, or it could be writing in your journal. Some of the best ways to calm a mind that, maybe you've just woken up from a bad dream, or maybe you wake up too early in the morning, you know, one of the best ways to bring your mind back to consciousness so that you are in control of it. Because when we wake up, we're not entirely in control of our mind, in the sense of we have to wake ourselves. Our conscious self has to be woken up, and it takes time to get there. That's why caffeine helps. But with that, what my point is sometimes the reason worry floods our mind early in the morning or when we wake up in the middle of the night is because we're not fully conscious, not yet. And so if we get in the habit of, okay, I'm just going to focus on what's going well, take out your journal for 5 minutes, just write down things that went really well the day before that you're really grateful, or in that moment, you're really grateful you have a bed, that it's warm, that the heat's working, the air conditioner's working, whatever it is. And sometimes that's all it takes. And it's a practice of bearing witness to what's going well. And the more you do this regularly, the more it'll become a default. That's what you are looking for, is the good. It doesn't mean that bad's not going to happen. It doesn't mean that unwanted's not going to happen. It's just that you're not going to be overwhelmed by it. And you're basically strengthening this muscle of knowing that so many other things are going well and that I can make it through this negative thing. And we'll talk about how to do that here in a moment. So those are the ways that it shows up in your life and how it looks in your daily life when you consciously put it to practice. Gratitude, putting it to practice in your everydays. Okay, so here are the benefits of a gratitude practice. Number one, it gives you energy. With energy, we can take action, and because of the perspective gratitude has given us, we begin to take constructive action based on choices that will enhance our life rather than keeping us stagnant and cemented in fear or worry. We gain energy, and this is what propels us forward to more success. And that's number one. The second benefit is that you gain clarity of thought. Quote, if you strategically focus your thoughts on appreciating meaningful or positive aspects of your present moment, instead of wasting your energy erroneously making assumptions about the unknown, you will have a powerful advantage. Your thinking will be more balanced, which will help you feel more stable, confident, and invigorated. So you'll navigate uncertainty and ambiguity more successfully, end quote. So reality versus fiction. Ultimately, a life that exercises gratitude instead of stewing in worry holds us in the present moment and sees what actually is, as opposed to imagining the worst case scenario or assuming unwanted intentions or motives behind others' actions. Quote, gratitude encourages you to appreciate how you, others, and situations actually are, rather than needlessly inciting anxiety and distress by focusing on how you think reality should be different, end quote. So it clears our thoughts so that we're seeing what is rather than what we worry will happen. This is going to dispel a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety. So be grateful, and you're already starting to dissipate that anxiety, dissipate that worry. The third benefit is that it establishes and strengthens a life of contentment, which leads to the success you seek. So here is a simple equation that she reiterates throughout the book. And I'm paraphrasing here, but the three concepts are thoughts, feelings, actions. Here we go. Your thoughts impact your feelings, and your feelings influence your decisions and your actions. Dr. Anderson goes on to remind that the order of how success arrives in our life is often misunderstood and approached backwards. So what she means by this is, instead of being grateful when we reach success, so putting gratitude after success in the chronological order, she teaches and reminds us that it is by being grateful that we reach success. Very simple switcheroo. And you might be saying, but wait a second. How can I be grateful if the success hasn't happened yet? That's what gratitude does. It allows you to see what's working well, to energize you, to gain clarity, to know which direction to go, to do what you need to do, and arrive where you want to arrive. All right. You can't just get success. You have to work for it. You have to know what it is that would be an example of success for you, because everyone's success is defined differently, first of all. And to know yourself takes time. This is part of the whole contentment journey. Knowing yourself is a first huge component of that. Gratitude then plays a role, a significant role in the toolbox to becoming content with regards to living a life of contentment, but also maintaining a life of contentment. Now, with reference to the Contentment Masterclass, we talk and teach that gratitude is a fundamental skill in building a life of contentment, both knowing what that consists of and putting it into practice every single day. Quote, thankfulness keeps our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors on a more positive, productive track, which makes us feel good about ourselves and the world. End quote. In other words, energy. We're giving ourselves energy rather than depleting ourselves. Feelings will always be a part of our daily life, wanted, unwanted, and benign feelings. So when we regularly practice gratitude paired with meditation as part of a mindfulness practice, all of these are components of living a life of contentment. We begin to recognize how we feel in different situations. This prompts us to cultivate a life in which there is even more to be grateful for, understanding that not all feelings will be desirable, but because we can see the opportunity in the unwanted, we choose constructively how to navigate and take action if necessary, so that we don't unnecessarily prolong the unwanted feeling. Here are 4 more benefits. I'm just going to list them off here because they're all things that we've talked about in detail on this podcast and the blog, but they lend themselves to everything we've talked about. So 4 is you will reduce your stress levels. 5, you will improve your sleep. 6, you will improve social relationships for reasons we've talked about briefly before, and then we will talk about it again when we talk about celebration. 7, you will improve your self-confidence and your self-worth, which leads me to the final benefit I want to talk about, because this is the one that we often don't believe is possible, but is so crucial. And once we understand it and then put it into practice, life becomes so much, I would argue, easier, but also more enjoyable. And we reach the success we want that we didn't perhaps think we could actually attain. Okay, so what is it? Number 8, the benefit is inner strength and courage. Thus, resilience is gained. Quote, courage is earned in the swamp. There's a fascinating reality that we can achieve more success after having been through the swamp than we would have if we hadn't struggled at all. The swamps will be unwanted slogs during our life journey and during the moments we're trying to get to a desired outcome. But we will only remain stuck in them if we refuse to dig deep and learn whatever we need to navigate out of them to the other side. Once we do this, we teach ourselves that we are capable of far more than we might have imagined. And that is when we realize we did gain something from the unwanted. But it took courage to keep stepping forward. Let's be real. The swamp will likely not prompt a smile or be enjoyable. I mean, you don't want it to happen, but we gain nothing by seeing it as a setback. Instead, as Dr. Anderson reminds, see it as a setup for something more, something we gain by choosing to figure out the puzzle and reach the other side. As a result, our anxiety will reduce whenever an unwanted moment arises because we know we can handle it well based on our past experiences of making it through the swamp. Thus, our courage is strengthened as well as the trust we have in ourselves. On this point of making it through the swamps, we often hear about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. But have you ever heard of PTG? Described by cognitive scientist Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman, PTG stands for post-traumatic growth. PTG is, quote, the positive psychological change experienced as a result of the struggle with highly challenging life circumstances, end quote. More succinctly, PTG is, quote, to turn adversity into advantage, end quote. In other words, see each momentary challenge or detour or obstacle as a chance to gain what you need to reach and become the person you want to be and live the life you are capable of. So ultimately, we can really only gain the life we want, the outcomes we want, if we choose to look for the opportunity in those struggles that will come along. We will not have to go through the same struggles again and again if we learn the lesson. And then we find ourselves in a place we may have never thought we'd be, but that is also where we go, oh, I did that. I can do this. And that helps us reach more success as we continue forward. Saying that we're grateful for these unwanted opportunities is really hard to do, if not impossible, in the moment, because we do not know and we cannot know how it's going to work out. But upon reflection, I'm almost positive you'll be grateful for those unwanted moments when you arrive at the place that you wanted to be. And that's okay if the gratitude is delayed, but don't forget to give the gratitude, because that too will boost how you move forward. Okay, so that is our conversation about gratitude. And as I mentioned earlier, they really dovetail. Celebration and gratitude really dovetail together. And so we're going to dive into celebration, what it is, and the benefits when we come back after this sponsor I'd like to introduce you to. Today's episode is proudly brought to you by Lola V, an award-winning hair care line founded by the ever fabulous, ever iconic Jennifer Aniston. As the leaves begin to fall and the air turns crisp, it's time to reassess your hair care routine. Do you ever wonder why your hair never seems to reach its full potential? It may be the weather, but it also might be hidden in your scalp. And for the one factor we can control, Lola V has bioengineered a 2-in-1 game changer to clean and nourish your scalp. The new Exfoliate and Detox Scalp Shampoo combines the power of a scalp scrub and a clarifying shampoo, featuring a unique blend of activated charcoal powder, bamboo extract, and gentle AHAs to get rid of all that gunk weighing down your hair, leaving your scalp clean and perfectly balanced. And let's not forget those vegetable ceramides and B vitamins. They're there to soothe irritation and reduce flaking. Plus, with ingredients like alfalfa sprouts and pea peptides, you're on track to thicker, fuller looking hair. Love the science behind great hair care? Lola V's got you covered with their proprietary B Pro 3 bond technology that ensures your locks are protected from damage. And the best part? This brilliance in a bottle is formulated for all hair types and textures, especially those dealing with dry, itchy scalps as the seasons change. And here's a treat for you. For a limited time, Simple Sophisticate listeners, you get an exclusive 15% off your entire order at lolav.com. That's LOLAVIE.com. Just use the promo code SIMPLE15 at checkout. And as we know, Jennifer Aniston's hair is brilliant, gorgeous, shiny, radiant, all of the positive attributes we might all want with our own hair. And she has taken the time to ensure that this is a product that brings the results you seek. What I am loving about all the products is the scent, which is something she carefully paid attention to. It is a soft, gentle, citrusy, just a lovely, welcoming scent that's not overpowering, and it's in every single one of her products. And I will share with you that one of the products that I especially love and use regularly is their intensive repair treatment. A few weeks before I go in for my next hair trim, as my hair is getting dry, it's getting tired, I use this treatment, and it does nourish and hydrate to get me through to my next hair appointment. And the detangler works beautifully, which is how Lola V first began. Easily makes your comb run through your hair and brings a subtle smoothness to your hair when it begins to dry. So the product to explore this fall from Lola V is their new Exfoliate and Detox Scalp Shampoo, which is clinically proven to increase scalp hydration and hair volume, plus reduce scalp flaking after just one use. Use the Precision Novel to section your hair and apply it right to the scalp. As you massage, it transforms into a luxurious lather that invigorates the senses with a beautiful herbal, citrus, and woody scent. Perfect for that Sunday reset. Follow up with their intensive repair treatment for a truly transformative spa-like experience. As a simple, sophisticate listener, check out all of Lola V's products at their website at lolav.com. And as a loyal listener, you'll get an exclusive 15% off your entire order when you use the code SIMPLE15. That's 15% off your order at lolav.com. That's LOLAVIE.com with promo code SIMPLE15. Please note that you can only use one promo code per order and discounts can't be combined. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please do support the Simple Sophisticate show and tell them that we sent you. Your hair will thank you. Welcome back. Let's dive into the reason that celebrating is a necessity and the benefits of doing so. So, at its core, celebrating is an act of practicing gratitude, which is why I wanted to share both of these skills and habits in the same episode today. By celebrating, we are noting that something went well, something worked out, and we are not going to overlook it or take it for granted. Nope. We're going to value it. Remember, that's the definition we shared at the top of this episode. It's the difference is valuing what it is that is going well in our life, not just, yeah. Valuing it, prioritizing it, taking note. So successes, no matter how big or small, known to the broader world or only known to us, they deserve to be celebrated because our mind needs to remember that we have succeeded at something we put it to task to do. Yep, aside from resting our being and taking a breath, cognitively, we must signal to our mind that we did what we have worked so hard to do. This releases all of the positive natural highs that begin to teach the brain that we are capable of achieving difficult tasks, of persevering, of being patient, and all of those other necessary characteristics, so that when the next goal is set, we will know, and thus our mind will trust, that we are capable of achieving it. Psychologist and researcher of neuroplasty, as well as author, Dr. Rick Hanson, and we've explored quite a bit here on this podcast. You may remember the book Buddha's Brain. He wrote that. He's wrote many other books, and that was discussed in detail in episode 327. I highly recommend the book, but if you want to taste what that book is about, listen to episode 327 or check out the show notes on the blog. And Dr. Hanson warns that, quote, in most cases, we don't consistently and systematically take the extra seconds to install these experiences of reaching success in the brain, end quote. Note he mentions that it just takes a few seconds to note that something has happened that we wanted to happen. And this is something we talked about in episode 327, specifically how to do it, like literally the step-by-step concrete practice. And you can listen to that episode to find that out. So it is up to us to intentionally remember to celebrate those good moments when we reach the destination or attain the outcome we had set our sights upon. Dr. Hanson shares in his book, Buddha's Brain, as we just mentioned, the importance of teaching the brain to trust that these good moments are possible. And it all comes down to savoring, slowing down to savor. In other words, celebrate. So why we might not celebrate? Let's first try to understand why we might feel we can't celebrate. And just to kind of dispel these falsehoods that we maybe have accepted as true. So she shares that some of the reasons we may not feel we should celebrate, there's that word should, right? We have to let go of that word, as we talked about earlier. We may not feel that we are enough just as we are. And so we're seeking validation from the external world because we don't trust that we have value just by being and offering to the world who we are. So that's not true. Number one, we are enough just as we are. And we do not have to earn our worth. We are already full of self-worth. We may forget that. And I've linked to a post about self-worth, and we'll talk about that more in a second. But we never lose it. We just may forget we have it. Okay? You are already worthy. You always have been and always will be. So you don't have to overextend yourself. You don't have to run yourself into ruin or burnout to keep going to the next project without taking a break and celebrating. Next, when we choose not to celebrate, it often comes from a place of insecurity in ourselves. And as we just mentioned, a feeling of low self-worth. And so this is a great opportunity for us to go, okay, why do I not feel I should celebrate? And if it's because you're nervous that you're going to lose your momentum, that comes back to not trusting yourself that, hey, look at what you just accomplished. You have to ingrain this good moment in your mind and your being. And that comes with a form of celebration of your choosing. Another reason we may not celebrate is that we over prioritize doing and undervalue being. This is something we've talked about before. We have to do both. We have to both do, right? We have to be in the moment and doing, we have to take action. We have to do tasks, take responsibility, take action in our lives, be responsible for things. But we also need to give ourselves time to just be still, let our brains rest, not have a task to do, and to do this regularly. We talked about this in a previous episode, and I'll link it on the show notes. And so when we understand that we don't always have to be in constant motion and constantly productive and doing something, we're not being lazy. That is actually rejuvenating us, clearing our mind, making space. And the last item on this list that why we may not celebrate is that we're afraid of getting behind or losing our edge. And as Dr. Anderson points out in her subtitle, one of the main ways we maintain our edge is by celebrating. We have to. It's one of the essentials that she reiterates. Celebrate is a key essential to maintaining our edge. So now that we can kind of we've dispelled those reasons for not celebrating, let's talk about why we need to celebrate. Number one, if we want more success down the road, we need to celebrate. As was shared in a Harvard Business Review article, quote, "We don't celebrate just the win, we celebrate to win." In other words, without celebrating, we won't continue to win. We have to do it. And why? Here are a bunch of other reasons. Because it shows our self-respect. Back to that whole elevating our self-talk, that we're worthy of the celebration. When we take the time to rest and celebrate, we communicate a trust in ourselves and to the outside world that we know what we did was done and done to the best of our abilities. By not rushing to the next thing, we are saying to our mind and to those who are looking for us to do more that we know we will be able to do so. But in order to do so, we need to take care of ourselves in the interim, in the in-between. This act of self-respect affects many layers of our life. It improves our self-talk, it improves our self-confidence, and it teaches others how to treat us because we don't let ourselves get run down. We respect our needs and value quality tomorrows. All right. The third reason we need to celebrate is to keep our edge. As we mentioned earlier, quote, "A pause is not paralysis, it's proactive." Ironically, because we give ourselves the time to celebrate, we gain back the fuel and energy, and thus the creative brain space to come up with those new ideas, to connect dots, to play with all that new and old knowledge we now have. When we view celebrating as a part of the preparation process for the next project, we see it as vitally necessary and less likely will we bypass it. The fourth reason we need to celebrate is that this will help us overcome those cognitive distortions. This is something she talks about in great detail in the first couple chapters of. So let's talk about what cognitive distortions are. So the worst case scenario, doom dwellers revel in cognitive distortions, taking all that could go wrong and letting it be the narrative of our mind. But when we choose to celebrate, we, quote, "help overcome cognitive distortions," end quote, because we are teaching the brain what actually is happening, which thus lends less credence to the negative thoughts we had once let run rampant. So we're changing the narrative with evidence, concrete evidence of the good that has happened, that we have achieved. And this starts to dissolve or thwart any of those negative distortions from running our mind. Okay, that's number 4. The fifth reason we need to celebrate is that we gain helpful feedback for our next project. And this, I love this one. We need to give ourselves time to reflect on why we were successful. So knowing what helped contribute to the success we are now reveling in helps formulate how we will work on the next project. But we must give ourselves time to reflect, and that is what celebrating allows. Similar to an acceptance speech at an award show, when the winner is sharing all of the people who helped them arrive at this successful moment, they are reflecting on all that helped, all that made it possible. And this happens when we celebrate, however you do it. Just make sure, as I mentioned at the top of this conversation, that whatever the celebration is, just make sure that in a situation where you feel you can decompress, where you can rest, where you can rejuvenate. And if other people were part of the journey, you have the opportunity and you take this opportunity to extend gratitude to them. If we rush to the next project and we don't take time to reflect, we aren't learning the helpful lessons that we may overlook or didn't realize played a role, and thus miss out on including these valuable ingredients in future projects and thus experiencing further success. So that's number 5. You'll gain helpful feedback for your next project. Number 6, celebrating will strengthen relationships, and it ties into what I just talked about with extending gratitude. If we take this example of the award show and the winner up there thanking all the people that helped make it possible, what we're talking about here is that we are acknowledging that we couldn't have done it alone. And it gives us the opportunity to share this energy, this positive energy that we have with others. Receiving gratitude is powerful. Not only are we strengthening bonds because we are practicing awareness that we couldn't have done it alone, but feeling appreciated is part of being human. And it's something we crave with regards to building connections with other people and why we are drawn to other people. And while we must approve and appreciate ourselves, when others see us and see what we've done and acknowledge what we've done, we cannot help but both people be lifted. Not only do others want to work with someone who will notice them, they also want to know that their work matters. We all do. And sometimes we forget because of those bad days. So when someone reminds us that what we are doing matters, that we contributed, we are buoyed and we are energized to keep doing what we can uniquely do and give to the world. And so thus those bonds are strengthened. That's number 6. And the last reason to engage in celebration, number 7, is that it will strengthen self-confidence. So long after the celebration has happened, we're going to remember it down the road. We're going to remember that celebration and why we celebrated. And especially when we find ourselves in those momentary swamps, we can remember that we did have success in the past. We are capable and we will make it through this unwanted moment. Yet again, celebration comes to our benefit because we invested preventatively long ago. Not only is celebrating beneficial in the short term because we begin our next project right after that, it is helpful in the long term at a moment we cannot predict when or where it will happen, but having celebrated previously, we are packing helpful insurance that will pull us through. So that's number 7. It will boost or strengthen our self-confidence if we take time to celebrate. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to sound probably obvious, but perhaps it's a necessary reminder. Life is meant to be lived. And if we forget to celebrate, we are consciously passing by one of the ingredients that makes life quite enjoyable to live. Our celebrations don't need to be grand or expensive or even cost a thing. They don't even need to involve anyone else in the instances where we are simply reaching a goal that solely involved our self-discipline, our sole effort to achieve. But be sure to celebrate, perhaps with your favorite meal, or treat yourself to an afternoon at your favorite place of respite, or even more simple, permit yourself to dance around your home and cheer aloud for yourself. Remember that self-talk? We're going to elevate our self-talk. This is communicating to our brain that all is very well indeed, and the endorphins will then begin to flow, and a new memory is created and stored that will be of great benefit now and tomorrow. So when we habituate the act of gratitude into our days, and remember then to celebrate whenever we achieve something we've set as an intention, we are then rewriting negative texts we may have held by default in our mind. And this begins to change how we engage with each day and with each person. This changes the vibration of our life's energy and how we live each day. And while the future is unwritten, we have provided ourselves with an infinite inkwell, so to speak, of possibilities that life is and will be quite sweet indeed. And it all begins by being consciously aware of all that is going well, taking note, savoring it, and then taking the time to pause and celebrate. I hope these two concepts now are seen with more importance, and less, if they were, less of a, well, if I have time to. When we realize that they're a necessity to living a good life, a life where we're reaching our full potential, a life that is grounded in true contentment, then while appearing to be easy or simple, that habituation starts to, over time, gradually improve the quality of our life. And they're very simple to do, and they're fun to do. They're fun to do. All right, you can check out the show notes and see all the links and the quotes and the link to that book that I mentioned, The Happy High Achiever by Dr. Mary E. Anderson, on the show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 389. And I'll be right back with this week's Petit Plaisir. So this week's Petit Plaisir is a tea from France, a varietal from a favorite French tea company, Mirage Frères. I've been drinking Mirage Frères for, 15 years, I think. And I always have their green tea on hand, but I don't want to talk about the green tea. I've already recommended that before, their Vert Provence. This week, what I want to recommend is it just arrived last week. I fell in love with, let me backtrack a little bit here. Last October, we had our first in-person gathering in London with top tier members at the Ritz in London. And I had my first second flush Darjeeling tea. And I didn't know there was a first or second or third. I didn't know. I mean, like I said, always a student, always learning, delighting in the little things that I learned, that, oh my gosh, this was delicious. It was described as the champagne of teas. It truly, truly felt so luxurious and silky and subtle, but lovely. I mean, it was just obviously what I didn't know I was missing. Talk about celebrating. I was like, woohoo. Anyway, so I started to do a lot of investigating. I purchased some of that particular second flush Darjeeling tea and brought it home, but I'm done. It's out and I can't reorder it because you can only buy it when you're at the Ritz. And so I've been searching for all different types from all different brands and trying second flush. Second flushes are hard to find. First flush is more common, and that's a harvest that happens in the spring and early summer. The second flush happens in summer, and it's just a fine tea to drink at any time of the day. And I found that Mirage Frères has a tea blend that blends their second flush and the third flush. So the first flush and the autumnal harvest. They don't have a purely second flush tea. So I'm like, oh, okay, we'll give this one a try. Oh, it's lovely. It has a medium amber color, so it's not dark black tea, but it's not light tea like a green tea or a white tea. And it is just soft on the palate while also gentle, and I mentioned silky. And it is called Darjeeling Master. And I enjoy it as a loose tea. But if you're looking for a tea that you can drink all day long, I enjoy this tea in the evening and afternoon. And it is one of those teas where it's not too strong. So anyone who's new to teas is not going to be put off by it. But anyone who loves teas is going to appreciate it. It's just like this delicate, lovely sip of luxury. Thus, I thought it would be the perfect petit plaisir. So provide a link. They ship internationally, and it actually ships pretty quickly. The shipping is not crazy at all. And if you live in France, it's free after you spend 60 euros. But I will link to it on the show notes of the podcast, and you can check it out and give it a try if you too are looking for a high quality second flush blended with the first and third flushes from Mirage Frères. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each episode ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. I want to thank you for tuning in today. And I want to share with you what our next episode is going to focus on. I promised back in summer and in spring that I'd focus on this, and I'm eager to bring it to you. I'm going to be sharing a skincare routine, my skincare routine, after having gone through a handful of different years and I've tried all sorts of different brands and different serums and different moisturizers and procedures and things like that. Nothing scary with the procedures by any means, but I'm going to share with you what I've learned. And I asked tons of questions of my esthetician and various people that are in the industry just to understand what's going on. And as someone who's 45 years old, I'm truly very happy with my skin. And for a couple of years in my early 40s, I was struggling. I was like, what's going on? What's happening as far as how do I combat this? And how do I do this healthily? And are there ways to do it healthily? Anyway, so I went through a lot of different products. But what I'm going to do in the episode 390 is share everything about my skincare routine, whether it's the daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal, yearly, whatever it is. I'm going to share it all. And link everything for you, but just talk you through what I learned as well. I look forward to sharing that with you, and that will be on the 16th, Wednesday, the 16th of October. Now, in the meantime, you may have heard that the Simply Luxurious Life is going to France, and we're going to have our first in-person gathering in Paris for a meal. It's either going to be lunch or dinner. I haven't decided exactly which, because I know some people that are going to come are going to be from France, and they'd be coming from places other than Paris. I want to give them time to be able to take a train or a car ride home afterwards. So we haven't decided if it's lunch or dinner yet, but it's going to be a multi-course meal with fellow top-tier members and myself somewhere in Paris. And I'm going to share when that sign up is going to open, which is it's going to happen sometime here in October. I share that information in the A Couple Moments that just went up yesterday. October's A Couple Moments. So if you're a top tier member, tune in to the A Couple Moments, and I will share exactly the date and time, Pacific time, that those signups will happen, because only 5 people are guaranteed a spot. There will be 2 people put on a wait list if I can get a larger table. And I cannot wait for you all to meet each other and for me to meet you and to be in Paris while we do it. So I'm super excited about that. One of the many benefits of being a top tier member. But again, watch October's A Couple Moments for the date. It will be later in October for the signups, and it'll be first come, first serve as far as who first signs up and pays, and then you are guaranteed a spot. All right, so until the 16th, with regards to the podcast, I will be on the blog and sharing our regular content every single week. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful October. Bonne journée. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, with the shortened URL tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. For more in-depth exploration of how to cultivate your own unique, simply luxurious life, pick up my new book, which became both a bestseller and #1 new release in France travel, The Road to Le Papillon, Daily Meditations on True Contentment. Available in all 4 formats for your preferred reading or listening. My first book, titled Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, and my second book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, are also available in each of the 4 formats. Readers can now join the more intimate The Simply Luxurious Life international community by becoming members of the blog, which offers the benefits of ad-free reading site-wide, unlimited access and exclusive access to content on the blog, such as the monthly A Couple Moments with Shannon video chat, tours of my home Le Papillon, the monthly What Made Me Smile post, and monthly Ponderings post, as well as the exclusive opportunity to enter all of the giveaways during the annual French and British weeks. To stay caught up on all things Simply Luxurious, the podcast, blog post, the cooking show, and receive exclusive news, as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart each new month, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's free monthly newsletter, arriving on the last day of each month in your inbox. There is also a weekly newsletter, which is also free, and arrives each Friday to keep you caught up on the recent weekly posts on the blog. Enjoy with a hot cuppa or cup of morning coffee, and stay in the know about all things simply luxurious. Look for 2 new episodes of this podcast on the first and third Wednesday of each month. And until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Thank you for tuning in. Bonne journée.